Well, very straightforwardly, first of all, it was no ordinary day in the financial markets. So any politicians that tell you that today was an ebb and flow of the bond markets is totally and utterly incorrect. What the markets are saying is that they don't believe that the things that Ireland are doing to try and get themselves out of this crisis are working. It's as simple as that. Now, there's international factors and there's domestic factors. The international factors are such that the bond markets are scared that the whole world economy is dissipating. Obama put in some stimulus packages we all know about a year ago, and, you know, other governments did them around the world. They are struggling at the moment, and the pace of the recovery of the US economy is really struggling. And when markets get scared, what do? They go straight to safe havens, and that is German government bonds. So what they do is they sell everything else. So they're selling the euro, they're selling equities, and they buy safe bonds. Now, that's the international factors. The domestic factors are obvious to most people who've been living in Ireland for a while. There's an absolute vacuum and paralysis at the head of the leadership of this country, and the bond markets figure this out. Every single decision that has been made has been either wrong or they have overestimated, they've been over-optimistic in every single number that they've done, and they have run out of credibility now. And we are basically moving from a banking crisis into a sovereign debt crisis, and that's the way we're going. This all started, you can remember, in Dubai in the middle of 2009 was the first domino to fall, then we had Greece. We are the next in line and we are the next domino. And the bond markets are coming towards us because they don't believe we have any credibility of getting ourselves out of this situation. And that's how they feel at the moment.
Minister, that would fill many people tonight listening with deep concern.
Yes, it would if it were true, but it's not true. The actual reality of the situation is that we have taken firm decisions from the very beginning. And the first of those was to guarantee the banks, and Professor Honan has been quite clear in his analysis of that, that was the right decision.
Stick with the bond markets. Two big things happened today, the guarantee extension and the bond markets. Stick with the markets, because if you don't mind, Minister, because that's what Paul was talking about.
Yes, because everything. The second issue, of course, is that we need to, once and for all, crystallise the losses in Anglo-Irish banks, because that uncertainty is creating its own difficulties.
But again, that's
and we would hope to do that in the next 3 weeks. And NAMA and all of the steps we have taken were absolutely essential so that we would find out exactly the scale of the problem, not only for us domestically, but also for the international market.
Just before I let you back in,
and the third thing that is equally important is that we must stick to our fiscal targets. So the fiscal targets we have said in relation to the budgetary issues must also be stuck to.
Let me come back in a minute. The bottom line is the markets don't believe you. They simply do not believe that we can get out of this financial mess. That's simple, even for people who aren't economists to understand. And let me remind you, not so long ago, your government was talking about the narrow gap between Ireland and Germany's borrowing rate. By your own logic, doesn't today show that that confidence has collapsed?
Yeah, well, first of all, we had a similar blip in the spring and the prices came down. Secondly, we are well borrowed forward, and therefore we have quite a bit of reserve of money on hand. We have 99% of the borrowing done for this year, and in fact, you know, we therefore have been able all of the time to raise the money. Now, there is a problem.
Can I just come back now, just because you mentioned borrowing, the funding clip that Robert Short spoke about there, the banks are going to need almost 30 billion. Is that the figure you think they're going to need?
Well, I don't have a figure on that. There is a challenge for the banks. We know that the recapitalisation of the banks is absolutely vital, and we have to resolve that issue.
Should you not know that? So would that not fill people with dread?
No, because the first thing that we have to find out is exactly the size of the hole in Anglo-Irish Bank, and over the next 3 weeks, the whole issue of Anglo-Irish Bank will be brought to resolution, please God. And in doing that, what we do have to find out is not only how much is it, but exactly have a plan.
Let me come back in there, Minister, because I think part of the problem is that people don't believe anymore, Minister. Honestly, I think they give people the benefit of the doubt. They're reasonable, the Irish people, right? They feel nobody knows the figures. And listening to you tonight in numbers would fill them with dread. The problem with Anglo was initially you were talking about 4.5 billion to bail it out. Now it's 24 to 25 billion. Standard & Poor's are saying 35 billion. The bottom line is people don't believe any of you know at this stage.
The bottom line is that we have to get the final figure, and we don't.
But do you know it?
We don't have it yet. And we have been clear about that, and that is one of the issues that we need to clarify for the markets, and that has to be done in the short term, and that has to be worked out.
The problem is, even discussing Anglo-Irish Bank, you would suppose that a solution, if we found it for Anglo-Irish Bank, would be the solution. It is not the case. We have problems with our other banks that the Minister is not owning up to. The other banks are going to need money as well. Now, most independent economists would think that Anglo-Irish banks, what they've estimated is way on the optimistic side. As we know from Standard & Poor's, they reckon it's about